If you are someone who reads news online and probably is on the news pretty much when the day or the hour or the second it's released, then you probably have experienced digital transformation already. Because if you are from my childhood where we used to wait for the next day's newspaper to hear about, I guess, yesterday's news, that's pretty much what my childhood was and a lot of other people's. We went through digital transformation in the news and media space in the first. So this is a video about how digital transformation is changing the world as it stands today and how it's developing new trends that we see all around us and not just in cybersecurity. Now, before I go into the trends of what has been created by digital transformation, you probably want to understand what the last couple of years have meant, which is the last 2 years of pandemic, how they have completely transformed. For this, I had Ariel from Zoom talk about this as well.
For me, over the pandemic, I think everybody is moving towards digital transformation before the pandemic, but that just really sped it up. And so now things like you'd expect to be in person are now moving online, and teams and organizations were having to find ways to do that really quick during the pandemic. As we all know, doctor's appointments, counseling appointments, school, everybody had to figure out how to take their processes and what they found value in and move it online digitally in a way that made sense for both the company to be more efficient, but then also the users or, the customer that's actually on the other side of that conversation. At the beginning of the pandemic, I feel like everybody made that switch. And I think now we've kind of turned that corner where everybody's kind of used to all these changes. And now we're getting to a point where a lot of these changes are still being maintained throughout the pandemic. And I see that going even further. I think people don't want to go back, or, there's certain things that will have to go back, but I think a lot of people will maintain the processes that they set out through this digital transformation in the pandemic.
Now, you heard a few examples of the way digital transformation has been accelerated maybe over the past few years. Zoom became a household name pretty much during the pandemic. This meant that Zoom had to go through a digital transformation themselves. And we had Heather from Zoom talk about the kind of digital transformation that they went through.
So I think the pandemic, it was part of the digital transformation that was brought on by the pandemic is, okay, we have to have now collaboration tools that enable our workforce to be effective.
Yep.
And so a lot of companies underwent massive digital transformation in the last 2 years to be able to support that remote work environment. You have to recognize how your risk profile has changed as a company and having people all over the world and working at home and maybe not in the office. That human element becomes much more important.
Thanks for sharing that, Heather. Now, why does it really matter to me? Now, from a Now, some of you may have already tuned out thinking, hey, this is digital transformation. I've already seen plenty of it, and I don't want to deal with this anymore. I live in a very digitally transformed world. I get my groceries delivered. I have my doctor's appointment online. I even get my driving lessons online these days, so I don't really have to worry about this. However, that doesn't really take away from the fact that we still are physical beings, and because we are physical beings, however, that doesn't really mean the cybersecurity challenges that the organization going through a digital transformation are any less.
Obviously, security is a big thing. When you're taking your whole workforce and you're shifting them to remote or even hybrid, your risk change, right? And where you invest in security might change. So your endpoints become very, very critical and important.
After listening to Heather, you may still wonder, hey, isn't that problem normally solved? Like, why am I worried about my changing actors? The funny thing is, digital transformation is still happening. At RSA, at B-Sites SF, if you were to talk to people, there are still organizations, till today, they are starting their digital transformation program. In fact, the digital transformation, the global digital transformation industry is growing by almost 20% every year, and it's expected to be about $1.2 trillion by 2026. Listening to the stat, some of you may think, actually, isn't this problem solved by DevSecOps? Isn't it? That's what we were trying to do? Kind of yes, kind of no. So DevSecOps really worked for organizations that have already gone through digital transformation. They've already walked through the DevOps framework. They've already walked through a path of doing agile frameworks. So all of that worked really well. And now they're on that journey to do that DevSecOps piece. However, for folks who are probably still going through a digital transformation or had digital transformation only happen in certain business units of their organization, the broader organization is still going through the digital transformation need, where if you are in an industry where you still print paper or send faxes, then you know exactly who I'm talking about. And if you are someone who is a customer to this industry, you probably still know who I'm talking to. If you're still dealing with faxes or the fact that you have to give them a phone call or even write them a letter, like a physical, actual letter. Like, I don't even remember the last time I had to write a letter to my own girlfriend or wife.
Yeah, I think as you go through this digital transformation, you think about all the data you used to collect in paper, in person, all the processes, and that has to move online. And that means all the businesses that handle that data are handling a lot more of it, and everybody has a spotlight on it. And so now we need to make sure that, as we move and all this stuff moves online, that we take the proper care of it and have the right security controls in place to make sure that customers feel secure or whoever's using it, as well as that the businesses can still move and adopt and be agile.
But I wanted to highlight the fact that digital transformation is important for everyone and not just from cybersecurity perspective. If you were to Google these days, I know the world is crashing. I know the market is falling down. I know Elon Musk is trying to buy Twitter. However, there are people in this world who probably are not at that level where they have suddenly transformed from using faxes, mobile phones to suddenly being fully on the internet. So for those of the community that still require attention, you probably should care about these people and the industries that they're going through this transformation for a few reasons. If you were to do a Google on the top 3 trends of digital transformation, you would find blockchain, data, hybrid workplace. Do they ring a bell? Because they clearly should, because if you think about blockchain, people thought blockchain was nothing to do with digital transformation. It was a byproduct of a finance industry going through digital transformation, where suddenly people were not happy with physical money and they wanted something online. The very first trend, we all saw it. And second one being data security, and that's probably the core of this video. Why data is suddenly important in a cloud security world or digital transformation. So one of the things you would notice as you kind of go through the behemoth of digital transformation, this is what data has made happen so far, just by doing digital transformation. The first thing that happened was when people started going through digital transformation, they realized they had a lot of data. Like some of the institutes that have been there for 50 plus years, they realized they had 70 plus years of data that they have been collecting, but they had no way to identify what they could do with it, or how do I make use of this thing? To do this, this is where big data projects, yes, people who are in data analytics, in some way or form, one of the reasons why that space got really popular, although that space has existed for a while, that space got really popular when the digital transformation happened in the space, and suddenly people realized, oh my God, we have so much data. What do we do with this? I know I'll run a big data project and I will, use whatever cloud that I want or whatever model that I need to create to effectively understand how much do I charge a car if it was to take a road, which is, they have to pay a fee for. From a cybersecurity perspective, what this meant for us. Now, the second thing that happened with the data was that we started identifying that, hey, I'm not deploying enough applications into production as quickly as possible. Why is that? And suddenly that led to the whole agile framework, the DevOps framework, and then later on followed by DevSecOps as well. So you kind of have to imagine that, oh, okay, once we have enough data points, because before this, we had a waterfall method, we knew exactly what we wanted to achieve, and we would take 1 year or 2 years or 3 years to achieve it. That's totally fine, but we would never find out if was there any point in that 2 year or 3 year mark that we could have done something better, but never happened. Data was also responsible for doing that. Now, let's bring this back to security as well. As this is kind of happening, DevSecOps is obviously getting popular because people are doing DevOps, they're going fast into production. Suddenly people are like, hey, we should do DevSecOps because security is being the blocker. And guess what? Why was security being the blocker? Because traditionally, what would happen when you deploy an application in production, security team would ask you for logs or data, basically, and you would send them all the logs. Now, the traditional security tools that existed with the security teams didn't really work exactly with the cloud tools. What that meant is they didn't really know what was going on. And this is not to blame the security team because the security products didn't do a great job at identifying the gap. And it took them a while for them to realize, hey, actually cloud is going to be a thing for a while, so we probably should do this. They finally started doing, oh, look at us. We can totally do this in a CI/CD pipeline and we would be friends with the developers. So this is why DevSecOps was born as well, because people started identifying ways of how do we integrate into this DevOps thing that's going on, that's changing the tech world that has gone through the digital transformation, to be precise. Remember, there's another group of people who haven't gone through digital transformation. They're all watching through the sideline. You may be wondering, okay, I get that. I see the big data trend. I also see the trend for DevOps and why DevSecOps probably got popular and why so many people are flocking on the industry thinking, I actually want to be a DevOps person, or I want to be a cloud security person, or I want to insert a new product or a space that was created by a digital transformation program. The crux of this is that we have a lot of trends that have created a lot of big spaces thanks to all the digital transformation that only some of the industries around the world went through. So where does this leave us? If I were to kind of zoom out completely for everything that I've spoken about so far, digital transformation has given birth to a few trends that have created so many job opportunities. right? So this leaves us with two things. First one being, there are already a lot of great opportunities that are being created by companies that have gone through a digital transformation program. Now, the next thing you need to look out for is, if only a handful of industries going through digital transformation has created such interesting trends, imagine what happens to some of the other broader industries when they go through digital transformation. I don't know, maybe for example, what happens when 5G triggers a digital transformation, or even IoT security. Remember, we have already started hearing about things like having a beacon in IoT devices, or even having a twin tower. You can literally replicate an entire electric center, or whatever it's called, basically into a virtual world these days. So it's only a matter of time before you start seeing newer trends. So, and if you are someone who's interested in that space, you should probably look it up. And the second one, which is basically everyone else who's starting the digital transformation program or is going through it right now, something I don't claim myself to be a fortune teller, but something I can tell you right now, which is a trend, at least in the people who have gone through digital transformation, supply chain security could be a thing. You should probably look into that. Like, for example, Okta with the supply chain thing with the call center person being hacked. God forbid, the Log4j example that came in, when Log4j, even though we have so much bloody data, we could not figure out where was Log4j used in our systems. More on supply chain security in the next video, so definitely tune in for that. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you share this with anyone who is going through a digital transformation program and is probably needs to hear that what they're doing is awesome, and we are looking forward to all the new trends that they're going to come up with. Thanks to them, we have so many more job opportunities. And if you have some thoughts on digital transformation, has it been good or bad for you? Leave a comment below and follow up more for cloud security content. I'll see you in the next video on supply chain security. Peace.